Hello and welcome to another edition of Southeast Ohio Sports Talk. I'm Ben Spicer, joined with Kevin Colley. Kevin, we've had a pretty exciting week of sports, and we're going to mix things up a little bit this week. We've got a guest visitor as well as a guest picker, so we're going to move our picks to the end of the show. And for now, we're going to talk about high school soccer. Yeah. And on the boys' side of things, Northwest, I know you saw them play one game. You covered their opener, where Evan Throckmorton scored 6 goals. I've been to several games since, and the Mohawks have really impressed me. They've got guys that can do it at all areas of the field. I mean, it's just overall an impressive group. Last night they won 5-0 against Waverly. The defense really shined. All season it's been the offense. 3-0 so far in conference play, and they've got 17 upperclassmen on the roster, so they've got plenty of experience on that team. Coach Josh Keeney knows what he's doing. The team just looks great overall. Is there anyone in the conference? They've got Wheelersburg on Thursday. Do you think the Pirates can maybe contend with Northwest?
I really don't. I saw Wheelersburg play against Benford, and they played Benford very well into a 1-1 tie, but Northwest really had its way with Benford as you covered early and often. The only team to me that will have anything for Northwest, and it's not even in the SOC2, it's South Webster. Those two will probably be fighting for Scioto County supremacy. South Webster obviously has Shiloh Evans, who's obviously very talented, and Sam Holstein. But to me, Northwest is the best boys soccer team in the county without question. Evan Throckmorton, what an athlete. I mean, scoring 6 goals against Clay. That opening game was actually Northwest's toughest match of the year because it was tied 1-1 halftime, and then they exploded for the 6-goal outburst in the second half. Ever since then, they've been rolling. I mean, this is a great team that's been assembled.
I was able to talk to Coach Josh Keeney about the game later on tonight against Wheelersburg. Let's see what he had to say.
Well, they got a couple guys up top that can score anytime, just like Waverly did here. I think we did a good job on their key guy. I think we're just going to have to do the same thing with Wheelersburg. They're explosive, just like Waverly is. We just got to play a good D like we have been, and I think we'll be all right.
Now, as for girls soccer, it's been Wheelersburg who's been rolling, and they're also going to travel to Northwest later on tonight to take on the Mohawks. What have you seen from Wheelersburg? I know we've talked about them several times in previous episodes. What have you seen from them that makes them so good? And then same question for that group. Is there anyone that can compete with them?
I will go with a double no on the competing with Wheelersburg. They're going to go to the State Final Four. I mean, Minford gave Wheelersburg its toughest test of the year, played excellent soccer in the first half. Defense was great first 25 minutes, and they were able to capitalize quickly on opportunities, which is the exact game plan that you have to execute against this Wheelersburg team. Still, Chelsea Humble comes with a hat trick, and Wheelersburg ends up scoring 4 goals in the second half. Wins 5-2, makes it look like a runaway in a game that was much closer than the score indicates. Todd Jarvis has that team rolling. He's a great man, a really good coach, and the 7th-ranked team in the OSSCA is going to not only be in the state final before, but I think will have a say in the state title affairs to come in D3. I think they're that good. They're just so deep. And much of that starting roster, is coming back next year. It's going to be really scary to see what they can do with them being a 4-year program and building it so fast.
Yeah, we've seen Wheelersburg win in all kinds of weather. They had that torrential downpour game that you went and covered. I don't even think you brought your rain jacket to that one. So Kevin's working overtime for us here at the Daily Times. So we're going to move on to Shawnee State and give you a little update on the Bears, the volleyball team. We talked about them in that tournament last week, so let's see how they did. They finished 1-3 in the tournament, and they went 0-2 on the last day in 2 sweeps. They lost those games 3-0, and those games took place at Jackson High School. So that moves their record to 4-4 on the season after they started 3-1. They're hosting the Shawnee State Fall Classic this weekend in some more tournament action. So take a look at some of the teams they'll play there. Pretty good. What looks like a pretty good tournament for the Shawnee State Bears, and a chance to get some momentum heading into the season at home for them. As for the soccer teams, we talked about some local high school teams, but Shawnee State men's soccer, you've gotten a chance to cover the men's and the women's team. As of right now, the men's soccer team 0-5 on the season. Alec Blevins, though, you mentioned South Webster a little bit ago. He's leading the team with 3 points. Former Jeeps player at South Webster, Alec Blevins. Men's soccer looking for their first win versus Brescia University on the road on Saturday, and the women's soccer team is 2-1-1 this year. It's been a team effort for the Bears this season. No real clear-cut leaders. They have several people that are tied with 2 points on the team. They're playing Asbury on the road on Friday night. So for the men's team, you saw them play. What do they need to do, to get a little better as conference play starts for the Bears here soon?
Just got to cut out the mental errors. They play really good soccer for most of the first and second halves in each of the games that they played this year, with the exception of the 7-1 loss they took in their previous matchup against St. Francis. But in each of the games, they make 2 or 3 mental lapses that cost them, and that's going to be the way it is with a young team that you normally see. The big key for Ron Goodson is going to be to keep this unit together. When teams begin to lose 5, 6, 7, 8 games in a row, it can get ugly quick if the mental lapses are not curtailed, because teammates can sometimes turn on each other in bad situations. That's where the coaching expertise comes in, and I know Coach Goodson has a good mentality of how to deal with his players, and hopefully that will carry over into the rest of the season, and we'll see the Bears make a strong finish as they head into Mid-South Conference play.
A lot of local guys on that Shawnee State men's soccer team, so former competitors now needing to come together to get the team going.
Yes.
So that's very fun to watch, to see all those local kids competing with one another now on the same team. We're going to move on to golf now, and men's golf had a very good start to their season in the Lindsey Wilson Fall Invitational on Tuesday. Jordan Taman, a graduate of Portsmouth West, shot a 138, which was the second best in the match. Shawnee State finished 2nd out of 10 in that Fall Invitational, and the women's golf was 9th out of 10 in their play on Tuesday. And then both teams are set to travel to Kentucky Christian University this weekend. And for the big program at Shawnee State, of course, men's and women's cross country, they've gotten a lot of attention all preseason. Both teams ranked within the top 10. They're getting set to take the Mid-South Conference preview in Bowling Green this weekend, so definitely fun to watch. I'm getting ready to talk with Eric Putman later on today, so we'll have more on that later on. But for now, we're going to go on and talk with head coach Jamie Rice of the West Portsmouth Tanks about the upcoming championship game on Saturday. We've got a special guest on the program just in time for their championship game. Coach Jamie Rice from the West Portsmouth Tanks joining the program. And can you tell us a little bit about how you thought this season has went and then the championship game?
Sure. The end result ended up how we were hoping and how we kind of expected it to. The way we got there was a little bit of a meandering path there. So we didn't expect our quarterback to get hurt. We didn't expect some of the injuries we had. We've been. It worked out well for us. Just not the way we expected. The end result, as long as we can win Saturday, it'd be what we expected.
So you talk about losing your quarterback. What did that do to your offense and just your team? It was in the middle of the season, What did you guys do to game plan around that and still win games?
Well, what happened really was the offensive line really stepped up. And the defense was already playing phenomenal anyway. But kind of the defense stepped up, and guys like, Snook Martin took over at quarterback. He wasn't there one game, so Luke Brown played quarterback. Both of those guys they're winners. They're winners, and we relied on those guys. We relied on the running game. We have some big-time receivers, so we just try to get the ball in their hands and let them do what they do. And really, it's that offensive line. That offensive line has gotten so much better since Job got hurt. We were struggling a little bit with Job, and it's kind of hard to tell when you're averaging 70 points a game or something, that you have a weakness there, but we did. And those guys have really stepped up and done a really, really, really nice job.
And you mentioned the defense in that game against West Virginia. I mean, the stats are just phenomenal. Yeah. I told Brian, it's hard to duplicate even in a video game.
It is.
So what's that like as a head coach, when your team has negative 47 yards on defense and doesn't even allow a first down,
Right. It's really nice because our field position was good. We didn't punt a single time that game. That doesn't mean we scored every time. We just didn't punt because we were in positive territory. So you're getting 4 downs instead of 3. And our offensive line that game played phenomenal. So we were calling plays and it was 2nd and 2, 2nd and 3. Anyone can call plays when it's 2nd and 2, 2nd and 3 all the time. So those guys were just tearing off chunks, and when that defense is playing like that, you just have a confidence. The whole team just has a confidence. Like, all we have to do is just go do our part, and not the offense or the defense tries to do too much. They just do their job, and that's when things go really well.
And you've got a familiar opponent, in the championship game, Butler County. You guys have faced them twice this year. We were talking a little bit. You guys played them in the championship when you were the Portsmouth Warriors.
Right.
So you know them very well. What do they bring to the table in this game that could create some problems for you?
What they do, they're a solid defense. Offensively, they have one of the best receivers that I've seen in semi-pro football. They, a tall guy, Tay White, have a really shifty running back. A pretty good offensive line, good quarterback that can kind of maneuver around and get himself out of some binds, and he puts the ball down the field. So, that can cause us some issues. Up front, they're strong up front. So our offensive line is going to have to come and play just like we did against the Lightning, because the Lightning are traditionally really strong up front. Sometimes if you can get to their secondary, you can do some things against them, but getting there is a problem. Same thing with the Broncos to an extent.
I know you guys have gotten great fan support so far this season, so obviously one last big game. What do you have to say to the fans who might be coming out on Saturday?
I hope you come out and we have a great game, and I think it'll be a fun game to watch. I think there'll be good defense. I think you'll see some explosive offensive plays. Good special teams play. The Broncos are coached well. They're not one of the teams that you can kind of come in and say, you can outcoach them. You can't really do that too much. You have to come out and beat them. And I think it'll be a hard hitting game. They like to run the ball. If you can't stop their run, they will run it until you do. And we're kind of the same way. So I think it would just be a good hard hitting game. Between two good teams.
Last time the Tanks and the Broncos faced off, it was a 22-16 overtime win for West Portsmouth. Head coach Jamie Rice, thank you so much for joining the program, and best of luck to you on Saturday.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Be sure you check out the West Portsmouth Tanks hosting the Butler County Broncos in the BCFL Championship Game this Saturday at 6 p.m. over at the Complex. But for now, we're going to go into our top performers of the week before we get into our picks. And Kevin, go ahead with your top performers.
Yes. First, we've already touched on it, but I'll start with Jordan Tiemann, former West grad. Just to follow up the 68 with a 70 on the second day of competition at the Lindsey Wilson meet there, and end up shooting a 138. Wow, the 68, you would have to check records, but it's got to be in the top 5 or 10 all time in school history. And with the program that Dave Hopkins is building there with him and Dagon Abden, it would not be a shock to see possibly a contention for MSC Player of the Year. Would not be at all. Both are very, very talented young men, and from the local area, which makes it even sweeter, because we can all kind of bask in that, knowing what they've overcome and what they've done to be successful. Then Chelsea Steele with a hat trick. Everybody talks about the big three, Madison Humble. You talk about Libby Miller and Lindley Willis. You've got another one in Chelsea Steele that is excellent on both ends. Shut down the Minford offense after they scored 2 goals in the first half. On the defensive side, came up on the offensive side, scored 3 goals, all from the right side, and just did an excellent job setting the pace for Berg. Just an excellent performance, and another standout girls soccer player that we'll be talking about from the Lady Pirates. Ellie McQuay, 20 service points, 12 kills, and 6 aces in a Wheelersburg volleyball victory over Oak Hill. Alan Perry was really singing McQuay's praises in the fact, and really all the young players' praises, saying that they all have progressed, but especially McQuay saying that if McQuay keeps progressing like she has been, she has a chance to be one of the better players that the Wheelersburg volleyball program has produced there. He said she could be a very special player there, and just in the district in general. Then last but definitely not least, you got to give a shout to the big boys on the West offensive line. I have never seen an offensive line gain 6-7 yards per attempt on a quarterback sneak every time they run it. I mean, Dylan Bradford scored 3 touchdowns off of the quarterback sneak, and they were not 1-yard runs. I mean, every one of his touchdown runs were 5 to 7-yard runs off of the sneak. And they weren't just doing it on the goal line, they were doing it from Portsmouth's 20, or they were doing it from their own 20, running the sneak, from their own 2, running the sneak, and they would get 5 yards each time. They weren't just doing it with the sneak. Garrett Hurd ran for over 160 yards, over 8 yards a carry, or almost 8. And you just got to give a shout when guys are putting up those kind of numbers to the line. I mean, they don't get enough credit for that. So big boys deserve all the food and all the water, all of anything they can get, because they earned it with the performance against Portsmouth, with them weighing 251 pounds on the defensive line. I mean, I think that's outstanding.
Yeah, especially with Portsmouth, big offensive line, defensive line, like you said, to match up with them, that's very impressive. I think my top performers of this week, I've got to go with Green's defense. And you've got a lot of guys, of course, with Green playing both ways. I was there in Franklin Furnace on Saturday to cover their game. They hosted Hannon from West Virginia, and that defense certainly won them the game. You know, they're up 6-0. They scored on their first touchdown, scored a touchdown on their first drive, and the defense was locked in the rest of the way. Hannon had a chance to score before halftime and kind of steal some of the momentum, but they locked them down, had a big goal line stand right before halftime, and then late in the game, Caleb Deerfield gets a sack, and Bryce Pond recovers it in the end zone for a touchdown. So big performance out of the Green Bobcats defense. They played very well, and I think they deserve it. As for my other top performer, I'm going with Gabe Streeter from Valley. He had a 35-yard interception return to put the first score on the board for the Indians, and then later on had a 51-yard touchdown reception. So we've seen him score on a kickoff, an interception return, and now a receiving touchdown. He's done it at just about every area of the field. Hasn't gotten going on the ground yet, but you can definitely expect that to change. He's so explosive. When we come back from this break, we'll have a guest picker on the show, and we'll pick this week's high school football game. Stay tuned on Southeast Ohio Sports Talk.
Let's take a look at some scores and stats from Week 2, the big game. Portsmouth West over the Portsmouth Trojans, 32-14. Big play from Josh Berry to give the Senators the go-ahead interception return for a touchdown. It's Vinton County over Piketon. Colgrove got the win over Valley, but big game from Gabe Streeter, 51-yard touchdown reception, as well as the interception return for a touchdown. Waverly got the win over the Zane Trace Pioneers to move to 2-0 on the season. Wheelersburg with a big win over Fairland, 37-6. Nice game on the ground from Dominic Reyes, 14 rushes for 81 yards and 3 touchdowns. The Oak Hill Oaks edged the Medford Falcons in overtime by a score of 14-7. East on the road fell to Danville by a count of 42-6. And Clermont Northeastern knocked off the Eastern Eagles by a score of 19-12. Sims Valley moved on to 2-0 on the season, the first time they've been 2-0 since 2012, with a 43-0 win over Fairfield Christian Academy. Rock Hill got their first win of the season over Northwest, 48-6. The Green Bobcats beat Hannon, West Virginia by a count of 12-0. A big defensive performance from the Bobcats in that one. And Notre Dame also got their first win of the season with a 20-18 win in overtime over the Millersport Lakers. As for the games being broadcasted in the local area this week, you can hear Piketon at Valley on Mix 99.3. Portsmouth West at Colgrove will be on 107.5 The Breeze. Fayetteville at Notre Dame comes to you on the AM station Fox Sports 1260, and the Huntington Ross at Northwest game will be online and on the TuneIn radio app, heard over on WNXT2. Pre-game coverage begins at 6:30 p.m. with kickoff at 7 p.m. for all those games.
Welcome back to Southeast Ohio Sports Talk. We've got a special guest picker on the show today, Hunter Staggs. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I graduated this year, 2017. I've been involved with all the West sports, basketball, baseball, football mainly. And I love sports. It's my life. It's been my life for many years. I got into high school and I was like, man, I just can't stop here. I got to keep it going.
And you've done some announcing, you were telling us before we did the show. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, I'm going to have to give credit to Mr. J.R. Hall. He's been our announcer for as long as I can remember. this past year he really got me into announcing. He started me out with a Tanks game. Actually, he went on vacation and he asked me. He said, "Would you like to give it a shot and announce?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, sounds good." So I ended up doing that, and then that accelerated from JV games, basketball games, to JV football games, and now I'm probably going to end up doing a lot more JV football games now that I'm out of high school, and it's just accelerating. It's great.
That's awesome.
Well, we're glad to have you on the program, and a spoiler alert, I don't mean to spoil it for you, but I think we know who Hunter's going to pick for the game of the week. We'll get to that in a little bit, but first, we've got Huntington Ross coming down to take on Northwest, and hey, something's got to give. Neither of these teams have won yet. I'll be doing that game for WNXT Radio, so I'm not going to make a pick, but Kevin, who do you think is going to win this one?
I got Chillicothe Huntington. They didn't lose to Wilson by a whole lot, and Northwest really has struggled to get off the ground the first 2 games. I apologize, Northwest faithful. I believe in you. Hopefully, Doug Monvon gets it. Continues to get things turned around there. But I've got to go with Chillicothe Huntington.
Hunter, what about you?
Well, I don't know much about Chillicothe Huntington other than baseball, but I just think I'm going to have to go with Chillicothe, hands down.
All right. Well, moving on, Eastern Brown, not Eastern from Pike County, is traveling to Franklin Furnace. It's a little confusing because of
Eastern
Eagles.
Meigs.
Yeah, Eastern Meigs County. They're coming down to take on Green, and Green got that big win over Hannon, so this is going to be an interesting game. The offense really struggled. I think they're going to take the next step, and I've got the Bobcats in this one. What about you guys?
I'm going to differ. I'm going to say Reedsville Eastern because Reedsville Eastern's defense has been very, very good. Offense is the big question. Can they get out of the scoreless punt? They've been shut out twice, and the reports say the offense is very, very, very bad. I'm going to go with Eastern by a touchdown on this one.
What about you?
Well, Ben, after hearing what you had to say about Green and how they did this week, I'm going to have to go with Green.
All right, that's going to be the game that gives you the advantage over Kevin now since he picked against the Bobcats. Notre Dame got a big win last week, their first win of the season. They're at home against Fayetteville. Fayetteville is 2-0 on the season. Tough game for Notre Dame. I think I'm going to go with Fayetteville in this one. What about you?
I'm going to go with the Notre Dame gravy train. I'm riding it for 2 weeks here after they beat Norrisport. I think they're going to come in on a high. I know they don't have a lot of players on their roster, but Fayetteville only beat Manchester by 8 points. That's an opponent Notre Dame can beat, and I certainly think it'll be a ball game, and having it at home certainly helps. And I think Notre Dame will feed off the home crowd and get the W.
What about you?
Well, I'm going to have to agree with Kevin on this one. I think Notre Dame could pull it out. I know they're 1-1. They're a really small school this year, but I think they could pull it out of their hat and get a win.
Yeah, they definitely got a lot of pride. I know when I talked to Bob Ashley at the media day, he said if we can get any sort of early success, it could go a long way for our program. So maybe some of that early success will help the Titans out. Moving on, we've got the East Tartans. They had a loss on the road at Danville. They're going to travel to Alexander. What do you think about this game? I think I'm going to go with East in a rebound game.
I'm going to go with East big. I think East gets back to what they did against South Gallia and shows the poise that Brady Doubt, that shows the quarterback position and the weapons that they have at the receiver spots.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
You got East as well?
Yep,
A
I'm going to
clean
have to go with
sweep
East.
for the Tartans in that one. And then we've got another one where something kind of has to give between Piketon and Valley. Piketon and Valley both 0-2 this season. I've gotten to see both teams play. I really like what I saw from Valley against Cold Grove last week, though. I think I'm going to pick the Indians in this one, especially after Piketon's kind of slow performance against Benton County. I think I've got Valley here.
I'm going to differ and go with Piketon. I think Coach Gullion will have his guys rebounded after the loss against Benton County. Benton County is a Division III school. While the loss was certainly one that I didn't anticipate, I really think Piketon will come out of this game ready to play. If they don't, they're going to be in big trouble being 0-3 and missing the playoffs in a year that was expected to be so big for them possibly competing for an SVC title.
What about you, Hunter?
I'm going to side with Kevin, and I'm going to go with Piketon.
All right, fair enough. We'll see how that one turns out. Moving forward, though, we've got Memphis taking on Nelsonville York on the road, and this is a tough one for the Falcons. It seems like I've picked against Memphis all year. I did take them over Oak Hill, but I'm going to go with Nelsonville York here again. I'm sorry, Falcons fans. I've got the red and black on. I have to go with Nelsonville York here.
Yeah, I have to agree with Ben. I'm going with Nelsonville York as well. There were questions about their line play, as raised by Nathan Dugan of Oak Hill. Nelsonville York has still gotten off to a 2-0 start, and that's with a freshman quarterback. I don't see them having many more struggles as the year goes on, especially against the Medford team that honestly has really struggled to stop the run. I got to go with NY as well.
I'm going to have to say Medford. I think the last year they were a pretty stout team, and believe it or not, West lost to them by a field goal. So I'm going to have to go with Medford.
All right, the upset pick from Hunter. We'll see how that one turns out. Portsmouth's also on the road. They're going north to take on Galleon, and Gallion's 2-0 this season. They've looked pretty good so far. Rebound game for Portsmouth. What do you think here? I think I'm going to take the Trojans on the road.
I'm going with Portsmouth also. I think Portsmouth, not only their athleticism, but I think a renewed attention to the details in practice, where they're going to focus on cleaning up those penalties that Aaron Duncan has harped on these guys for 3 weeks. I think it's finally going to get through. Portsmouth will clean up the penalties, especially knowing that they have to on the road against a 2-0 Galleon team, or their playoff hopes could be in jeopardy with a 1-2 record starting off the year, having to beat Ironton and then several other tough games later on in the season. I got Portsmouth. I don't think they're going to lose.
What about you?
Well, Kevin, last week me and you were both at the West game, and we seen Portsmouth and West. It was a dogfight, and there were tons of penalties.
Yeah.
Portsmouth will definitely have to clean that up if they go up there this weekend. But I'm going to have to say Portsmouth. I'm going to side with you guys.
Clean sweep for the Trojans there. Hopefully they can get it done on the road against Galleon. Next up, we've got Wheelersburg traveling to Heath. Now, Heath is 0-2 on this season. Wheelersburg has looked very good. I think it's without question that Wheelersburg wins this game on the road.
I'm going to say Wheelersburg, but I don't think it's going to be by as much as people believe it will be, because Heath has played very well in his 2 losses, and they have the game at home. They're going to be fired up because you don't want to go 0-3 in this playoff system with the points meaning so much and having to miss the playoffs. I think I'll have Berg, but only by a couple of touchdowns. If Berg wins by more than that, I have to say that's a really, really impressive win and a big shot in the arm to Wheelersburg's hopes to get past not only the regional finals, but go even much farther than that, really.
I'm going to have to agree with Kevin. It's going to be a close game, but I'm going to go with Wheelersburg.
You know, it's kind of weird to say a couple of touchdowns. Wheelersburg will only win by a couple of touchdowns.
It is.
Still such a dominant
Yeah.
team. You know, they played very well this year. So now our game of the week, and this is a very good game. I saw Cold Grove play Valley last week. You guys have seen West in both of their games this season, so it's a good matchup. I've got the Hornets, though, over West at home. I liked what I saw from their offense last week. They've got several weapons in the backfield, and where they're so multiple, it's kind of hard to match up with them. They're kind of like Ben Johnson's team, but they're very good on the ground, and they've got a very good quarterback as well. What do you guys think?
I'm going with West. I just don't see Cold Grove's line competing with West line, especially after the performance West put up against Portsmouth. If they come out with any type of intensity like they play against Portsmouth, they're going to beat Cold Grove pretty badly. I have West by 4 TDs at least.
Wow.
I think if our line puts it up and does really good like they did last week against Portsmouth, I'm going to have to go with West. They're a dominant team this year. I think they got a good senior class that has tons of weight on the line. They have good receivers. They have a good. Well, Dylan, he's a sophomore, or junior, but he's a quarterback. But
Dylan Bradford.
I think we'll do really good.
Yeah, you heard it here first. We've got 2 people picking West in our game of the week, and I'm going with the Hornets, so stay tuned for that one. We've got several picks. I know in week 1, me and Kevin were kind of on the same page, but now we're branching off as the season goes on. We'll be sure to update you on the records, as well as Hunter's record. And for Kevin Colley and Hunter Staggs, I'm Ben Spicer. Thank you guys for joining Southeast Ohio Sports Talk. Make sure you share and check us out for future episodes.